Thank you, PJ. It is, in fact, time for another edition of the Pair and a Spare podcast. We are presented, as always, by our great partners at Jack's Cafe, and we're here after a little mini hiatus. I'm Justin Gaard from The Fan. We've got Ryan Burns from GopherIllustrated.com and everyone's favorite accountant now, apparently. That is Burnsy, and Chip Scoggins from the Minnesota Star-Tribune. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you haven't, we've got a ton of new subscribers here in the last couple of months, which is awesome. We love people find YouTube. We are always wherever you get your favorite podcasts. My bosses would appreciate if I tell you the iHeartRadio app is a great place to do that. It's free. It's easy to use. You can subscribe to us there, and so many different ways to consume content here of the Pair and a Spare podcast. Happy February, guys. Happy Valentine's Day, Burnsy. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. I have regrets about going into the financial data, but I was a smart enough man to ask my wife to be my Valentine, which apparently means something to her. Now, I don't know if we're actually going to go out because that's not really her vibe, especially on Valentine's Day. But apparently my wife of years now still wants to be asked if I can be her Valentine.
Wow, keep the spark alive. Keep the
Some
spark alive.
try.
Chip, were you aware that Valentine's Day was coming up?
One day.
Is it today? Today's like actually Valentine's Day.
Like, and there's our romantic right there.
I don't know.
No.
It's always like a Tuesday, right? Or is it a certain date? I don't even know. I honest to God don't know.
February 4th. It's always February 14th.
Oh,
that could be any day of the week.
Holy cow! It's Saturday.
Get your planner out.
Yeah, I do have a planner. I have kind of a busy week, so I actually broke the planner out yesterday and wrote it down because my brain's not as sharp as it used to be.
Yeah, my planner's an absolute mess. Today is an absolute disaster. Thank you guys for doing it on Wednesday. It was originally a free day where I had more time, and now it's a complete gong show. So I appreciate you guys doing it Wednesday, which is a day later than we usually do it. All right, let's get right to it. We got a lot of here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about North Dakota State jumping up to the big boys table. They're not full-on adults yet, but they're teenagers now, and I love this move for them. I want to talk about that. I want to get Burnsy's thoughts on it, of course, as a guy who covers the recruiting aspect of it. We're going to talk about the former athletic Moose's book that isn't out yet, but excerpts are coming out, and oh my gosh, are there some spicy nuggets in there about Scott Frost, about Board of Regents, about leaving the Big Ten. There are so many good things to get to. In that book, it left me feeling bad for Husker fans and feeling good about the functionality of every other athletic department. And then we got to talk about, as Burnsy's already alluded to, something that apparently is threatened to ruin his Valentine's Day: the Gopher fiscal year budget, which is one of his favorite days when that gets released, and anybody can go read it at gophersports.com. And Burnsy apparently has. Let's first, though, start, Burnsy, with the PJ Fleck contract amendment, which is my favorite halfway thing in college sports now. It's not an extension. It's not a reduction. It's an amendment. What the hell does it mean?
Yeah, well, that's where we started to hear some things coming out after our last episode where there was talk about Naples. Apparently President Cunningham was alluding to something. It's not a contract extension, as Guardsy says. It is the same years. It still goes through 2030, but what it is the introduction of another bonus, which is called a management bonus, which vests for $350,000 on March 1st and July 1st of each year, starting here in 2026, going through 2030. So it's not as if there is a ton new with it, to be quite honest with you. He has the ability to earn an additional $700,000 a year with that bonus if he stays. But you also look at some of the changes to incentives, where now written into this amendment is if he wins 5 Big Ten games now, which would put him, as we've seen for the last 5 seasons, Minnesota's won 5 or more Big Ten games because they finished above 500 in the Big Ten for the last 5 seasons. He would get $150,000 if you win 6 Big Ten games, $300,000, 7 or more. You start to get into the granddaddy bucks at $750,000. Now, the other thing I know people are going to want to know about is, Ryan, what does it mean for the buyout? The buyout's is the same that it was largely, where if a school wants to come and get PJ Fleck away from Minnesota, it's going to cost them $4.5 million. That's it. I mean, to me, that's a very low buyout if somebody wants to come get him. Whereas on the flip side, the verbiage also remains the same, that Minnesota, if they were to fire PJ Fleck, would have to pay him a termination fee equivalent to 70% of what he's owed. And for the purposes of, let's say they fire him just a couple of days after the Wisconsin game this year for whatever reason. Now, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying I picked the day. It would be $23.59 million, which, as someone who has, as we'll get into, gone over the budget here at the University of Minnesota, there is just no possible way I can see them doing that fiscally or them wrapping their mind around that in any sort of way. So this was signed back in January. So I think what we've learned from this whole deal is, if PJ Fleck and Rebecca Cunningham and Mark Hoyle don't want something to get out, it's probably not going to get out until you see it on a Board of Regents item that is going to be coming up here for them to approve in the next 48, 72 hours. But it's largely just the introduction of a new bonus that vests only if PJ Fleck's here. So, Chip, now that I've given you the 3-minute spiel about the deal, what's your reaction?
Yeah, I think it's one-sided in PJ's favor. If you're going to get potentially, $750,000 in a retention bonus or bonuses, if you're winning, I would want to up the buyout. If I'm the school, I would want to have a little more protection than $4.5 million. Not sure why they didn't negotiate his buyout higher. Because it's obviously they value PJ. They keep adding to his, whether his base salary, his, this retention bonus. $4.5 million, if you want to coach, is nothing in today's market. So, but in the grand scheme of thing, if he's winning 7 Big Ten games, it's worth $700,000 for the coach to get there, right? Because you're going to be in the mix you're probably going to be in the mix for the playoffs. And so, I don't know. It's modern college sports, right?
It is. And I have no issue with it, especially knowing that he's now, I think between base pay, supplemental pay, all these vesting bonuses, the amount of jargon in here about vesting bonuses versus base pay versus supplemental pay makes my head spin. But the thing I should also mention before we get Guardsy's reaction is this puts him 10th in the Big Ten in Big Ten head football coaching salaries, which, as I mentioned, Minnesota's finished above 500 in the Big Ten for the last 5 years, which means Minnesota's finished somewhere around 7th, 8th, 9th in most of those seasons. So again, I have no issue with just a little bit of money there.
That's, to me, I saw that too, that he's 10th in the Big Ten in total compensation, not salary, total compensation. They're a middle of the Big Ten program. That's middle of the Big Ten salary for the head coach. It lines up, right? And longevity. I mean, you look at his longevity.
I agree with you, Chip. Exactly. I agree with you. Because it's impossible. It's impossible to move on from him if you want. This aura that's behind me will be here a long time if PJ wants it to be here, right? Which I think is fair. I think it's fine. I think everybody knows how I feel about PJ. I think he's done a good job. I think we're at an interesting time in his tenure to see, can he throw some accelerant on it and get it going, back to the 2019 level? Can we have another jump like they did a few years ago? That I think everybody agrees it's probably high time to do that another time or two. But the low buyout does bother me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Like, where we're going to have to do this every time, every time jobs open. And if he has a good season, if he wins the 7 games and he gets the 750 and he's in the playoff and he gets whatever, like, everyone's going to look at that and go, well, he's gone. And Burnsy, it's good for your message board, right? It's good for your clicks. It's good for podcasts like ours, for fans. So I wish that would have been addressed more. I don't know. I'm sure. I know he likes working for Mark. I know he likes, being here, but you're giving him a lot of protection, which, again, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve, but you're kind of naked if somebody wants
you're
to
not
come.
protecting
Maybe
yourself.
maybe their argument is, honestly, because let's talk about who would come to the game. It would be another Power 2 probably, or
Mhm.
and maybe they think anybody lower than that, or one of the other power conferences, maybe they would balk at a $4.5 million buyout. Maybe that's their argument, and their counter argument is a big school doesn't care about any buyout that you put in. If it was 10, they would still come and get them. If it was 15, that might be their argument. I don't know. Maybe we're just arguing semantics, but yeah, I don't have any issue with giving him the extra money, the management bonus. That money, I bet, like, he'll probably forget about it, and then all of a sudden his direct deposit will show up and go, "Oh yeah, the management bonus. I forgot the management bonus that I signed." Like, that's how many different triggers he's got in this thing. But yeah, it's give him some more money. Anything for the assistants, Burnsy? Because I know you're always big on that. Or does that go right into the budget conversation?
So it's not directly written into this amendment that Fleck gets more money for his assistants. I did ask somebody that I would, I guess, call a trusted source about, did the assistants get any more money? I was told yes. Now the question is, where? Because I'm started to do FOIAs for the assistant coaching contracts. I'm not exactly clear on where, if that is true, that has gone thus far, but I guess I'm hoping to have more clarity by the end of the month once more and more of these salaries get put into the U system and I can start to do the math again. But yes, I've been told there's more money. Now we'll see if that is actually being spent or if that's being banked as part of the whole budget discussion.
Well, in fairness, to play devil's advocate on it too, they got some pretty young coaches that are first-time coaches here that it's not like when you promote Danny Collins, you're not going to go out and give him a $3 million contract. You're going to give him a $2 million contract. They've had so much turnover in their coaching staff that if you're retaining Joe Rossi or, a coordinator that's been here 5, 6, 7 years, those guys need a bump. But when you're constantly replacing them with young coaches Mo Ibrahim's, has he been a coach before? You're not going to start him at a premium salary, right? And so I don't know that coaching pool is going to look demonstrably different this year than it did last year. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I can tell you right now, they've already saved $400,000 from going from Matt Simon to Isaac Frichte. They saved $100,000 from going from Jaden Everett as the running back coach to Mo Ibrahim. And I think the thing I continue to learn as I go through this is I hear what you say, trust what you do. And I hear that, they want to give the assistants more money, but then I see what they actually spend on the assistants. And I get the conversation around Greg Harbaugh and Danny Collins. And I've been having this conversation a lot with the lovely people of Gopher Illustrated. Is this could almost be an entire podcast by itself. I'm not advocating that Greg Harbaugh or Danny Collins should get a raise after what we saw last fall. I'm advocating that after this upcoming fall in 2026, where it is Greg Harbaugh's 4th year, Danny Collins' 2nd year, either they're going to sink or swim. And if they swim, can we actually see Minnesota actually try to hang on to them if somebody comes in with an additional $400,000 to $500,000? Or if they sink, I will remind people, Greg Harbaugh is the highest paid offensive coordinator in the history of the program at $775,000. That is the worst in the Big Ten. Minnesota has never paid, as that statement just said. Kirk Soroka never made above that. He agreed to terms, but never coached on them. Mike Sanford never made more than that. They just do not pay their coordinators, or even on the defensive coordinator side of things. Corey Heather made $850K, and then Miami came in, and Minnesota didn't want to match, or even if it kept going higher and higher, we don't know. Or the Joe Rossi discussion. That is kind of my point that I'm going to start burying my flag on the hill of is, I'm not advocating for after what we saw this fall that either one of those guys should be getting raises. My advocation is, say you move on from them, are we just going to see Minnesota give Fleck a pool of $700,000, $750,000, which I will remind people is bottom 2 in the Big Ten. I don't know what Northwestern is, but Northwestern just hired Chip bleeping Kelly as their offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see the administration, because it is a nuanced topic, because you're never going to get PJ Fleck on the record to confirm that he gets no budget. You're never going to get Mark Coyle to say he gives him no budget. What would be the what would be the thing? Why would they bury themselves like that? But that's kind of my point with this whole thing is I'm not going to raise a stink about it here until about November, December, because then by then we'll know if they need to pay Greg Harbaugh or Danny Collins or if they just need to move on from them. But expecting anything different than what their pay continues to be year after year for these coordinator spots, which again, I think all of us would agree outside of Fleck, the most important people are going to be who's running your offense and who's running your defense. So we will find out here as time continues to move.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, let's say after Corey Heatherman left, PJ, we know how much he liked Danny Collins, appreciate his story. But if he would have said to Mark Cole, you know what? I want to spend $1.5 million, $2 million to go get a defense coordinator. I like Danny Collins. We can make that move easy, but I want to go get an established defense coordinator. Would that opportunity have been there?
I think
or did he
laughed at for about 10 minutes?
You think Mark Cole just said absolutely not promote Danny Collins?
Again, my point, I'm going to make the same point I've made to some people over in Dinkytown since in the last couple of weeks. You can say what you want to say, but I know what the data actually backs up that you guys do not pay. Like the pay just is what the pay is. And then the pushback becomes, well, Fleck's just going to hire his guys. You think we have historical data that when he goes outside, and it's not a Greg Harbaugh or Danny Collins, where it's a Mike Sanford or it's a Corey Heatherman. Corey Heatherman made $850,000. And again, that was the outside hire after Joe Rossi, where that thing went to AFCA and they went and they got to a final two and neither one of them were Danny Collins. Well, great. Everything went great. And then you weren't able to, you got him to 1.1. You didn't coach on it because then Miami came in over the top. And then we get into the whole argument of, well, Miami has more money than they know what to do with on South Beach. So you would have never won that battle. Maybe you're right. But if that's the point where you're just a feeder school for all these blue blood programs when you hire a good coach, I mean, what are we doing here as a program that is in the Big Ten, which is arguably the best conference in football? Like, I just want to see an action from administration one way or another, where if those two coordinators that Minnesota has don't perform, okay, go get new guys, but give Fleck a budget of $1 million. Like, I'm just asking for $1 million then. But I don't have any faith, especially as the upcoming fiscal year budget isn't going to look any more kind, and they're going to be struggling to find any dollar here and there. Like, I just don't have any faith that that's going to happen. But I guess we're going to have to wait and see who's right in about a year from now.
You want the ability for PJ to sum up the last 8 minutes of your rant there. You just want, if he needs to go pay somebody, they need to allow him to pay somebody. That's what you want. Because, Chip, you're right. When you replace guys with younger guys, of course. But, shoot, stock market seems to be doing okay right now. Invest that and then just let that vest for a year, and then maybe you'll make 50% on it. And all of a sudden you can go out and get an established dude if you need to make a move or if somebody comes and grabs somebody. Yeah. You just want the ability, Burnsy. I understand.
Yep.
I understand. Good luck on those FOIAs, by the way. I look forward to you getting those in by July 4th. That'll be good. You'll enjoy some good light 4th of July reading. All right. But you did, because they do have to put, because we're a public school, they did throw out their fiscal year review. And Burnsy, because you like torture, you went through all of it. And you've some thoughts and feelings. I would encourage people, if they haven't read it, to go to gopherillustrated.com. Burnsy did a good job knocking some things out there and really distilling like 89 pages, I think is what it is. Budgets are not fun to read. They are not anything that you want to take a look at unless you have to, because they're very confusing. But you can direct this entire conversation, Burnsy, and Chip, you can react to it obviously as well. What your takeaways are, what your issues are, what your concerns are, what surprised you. Take it however you want, Burnsy, and we've got a good chunk of time to talk about this.
All right, I'll try to keep it as concise as I can. It's a topic that I didn't exactly know what I was getting into, and then it appears I've opened Pandora's box with this discussion. Between the amount of time I've been on the phone, which I hate being on the phone, but this is a topic that requires apparently me to be on the phone, talking to people, getting thoughts and feelings, getting more context, et cetera, et cetera. I will also put out the disclaimer of whatever your favorite Gopher program is. I promise you, I don't hate it. I don't. And I'm not advocating for anybody to cut programs. I'm just going to go through the facts and figures of what line items are. And I think to start, let's get this out of the way too. This is fiscal year 25 data. What does that mean? That is a time period from July 1st of 2024 until June 30th of 2025. So we're talking about the seasons of 24-25. This was a season where for football, they beat USC and I think it was Wisconsin home. No, it was Penn State.
Yeah.
They took to the wire. That was that season we're talking about.
They lost Penn State, yeah.
Yep. So the interesting part, and if we want to start with football, is football profit for the first time in the history of the program broke $100 million. Now, a large part of that is because of the media rights deal. The interesting part is twofold with this. I think it was a $2 million drop in ticket sales, which is interesting. And the other part was they essentially kept football spending in the most expensive era of college football we've ever seen flat. It rose by $250,000, which, to put another way, Chip, is 0.47%. So they kept it flat. Profits continue to go up. Now, again, ticket sales did go down, and I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert here. I did the math for this upcoming fiscal year, which will be released over the summer. The 25 attendance is down year over year for football, and that's going to be a theme here across all sports as we get into the men's and women's basketball discussion. But what's your question, Chip?
Can it, so just to be clear, this predates revenue sharing.
Yes. The other thing that I need to get out here early is this is not accounting for the $20.5 million of house payments. That will come up in the next fiscal year. This is not including in their budget the house payments. They're trying to set themselves up so they can bank some money to afford the ability to pay the $20.5 million. But that is not included in the $160-something million they spent.
I wrote the attendance thing, and I wrote a column at the end of the season, and I brought it up a couple times here. And I got some pushback from people like, Chip doesn't know anything about college sports. They know that TV money's everything and ticket revenues, that's not a big a factor. It is a major problem. I'm telling you, attendance is a significant problem. Football is declining. If you look at where they've gone year after year, it's getting smaller and smaller, even though they've reached a status where I think they've raised the floor. PJ's raised the floor. You sort of go into the season, okay, this is going to be 6 to 8 wins, 7, you kind of know what to expect from this program. The student section's been better. Attendance is falling. I mean, you go into Williams Arena, we thought Nico would come in. It's a much better product. The guy can flat out coach. They're a fun team to watch. Attendance is still bad. And this is not isolated to Minnesota, but if we're just talking about Minnesota, attendance across sports and all sports, football, basketball, whatever you want to call it, pro, college, it's down for a myriad of reasons. We could spend an hour talking about that. But when they're investing, they don't sell out a 50-seat stadium. That's a problem.
Guardsy, I'll kick it to you again. I've thrown a lot of different things out there before I try to put any more out there. I want to get your reaction to football spending being largely flat, attendance being down in terms of ticket sales year over year. What's your reaction?
Well, let me ask you this question. How much money do you think they're leaving on the table or not accumulating because of the football attendance, because of attendance being down in general, if you want to put it to the three? Because I think the men's and women's basketball, I think they're down too from the year before, and football, as you just mentioned, is down. So how many millions of dollars? Like what is the football ticket revenue? What's that number? I haven't looked at.
Sure.
And what are they potentially missing out on? Let's just say hypothetically every seat was sold for every game, 53,000, whatever it is.
So they did.
How many millions are we talking about? That?
Yeah. So in fiscal year 25, Gopher football did $11.6 million in ticket sales. Previous fiscal years, they've done 14. They did 11.8, 12.3, 13.4. I mean, football ticket sales have largely been flat, somewhere within plus or minus 10%, largely. So you're only leaving a couple million on the table. But as we're going to continue to get into, especially as we get into the basketball discussion, for football specifically, every dollar matters in terms of revenue generator, because you are about the only program at the University of Minnesota generating anything worthwhile in terms of with the budget. Now, again, I'm cognizant that so much of this now is media rights money, but I have no problem with so much of that actually being allocated to football, because that's the reason why you have 60-70 million dollars coming in, is because people want to watch football. It's the most popular sport in America. Again, we just saw what the Super Bowl did for numbers, but it's the interesting thing about trends where I looked at it since fiscal year 21. That's the last 5 years of data. The Gopher athletic department has increased spending on football by 83%, while revenue has gone up by 125, and the profit margin on football has gone up by 181% in the last 5 fiscal years. So revenue continues to go up. Spending doesn't exactly match that. And that's how you have a $250,000 increase in spend while your revenue went up $11 million. So it's a talking point where it's trying to get people into the stadium. Yeah. And that's where the ticket sales discussion, and Chip talked about it a little bit there. And I do want to hit this home. In my 15 years of covering this team, the student section has never been better. And to me, I think the student section is such an important part of where fan interest is. And I think you look at, especially for football, that thing is full. It's now full for even non-conference games before kickoff. And then we look at men's basketball, or even just this past weekend, what was there, 200 fans there, 200 students?
Right.
Like, the apathy for football is not there. I mean, there's still an appetite for it in this market. But that's where, unless you guys have any more football thoughts, I think the more interesting part of this fiscal, or at least the budget discussion, gets down to men's and women's basketball, which I can get into the trends. But before we do that, do you have any more thoughts on football?
I wonder how much football revenue is being allocated to trying to pump up the other sports in terms of buyouts for, Ben Johnson hiring Nico, that transition there. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you know me, I've long been an advocate that you've got to spend money to make money, and football is the one that's going to make the most money. And obviously the TV money is going to keep going up and up and up. But if you're comparing Minnesota to Iowa, Wisconsin specifically, because they're the two biggest rivals, two board schools. I mean, when you look at the size of their stadiums and you just say ticket revenue, parking, concession, merchandise, all those things, there's a big gap. And how do you, I mean, what's Wisconsin? Probably 70,000, 75,000. Iowa's probably same thing, right? 70.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking 20,000 people. Not saying every ticket's going to be sold there either, because we've seen Camp Randall that's not, but there's just a big gap there in terms of potential revenue that they have an advantage on you.
Well, how do you get slaughtered? Is if this is another talking point I've had with folks over there, is I don't know what the perfect 1-for-1 comparison is, whether it's Minnesota football program to another football program, whether it's Minnesota's athletic budget to a different athletic budget. I don't know if that exists. Just for the comparisons within this article, for what fans care about, it's beating Wisconsin and Iowa. And when you look at their ticket revenue from fiscal year 25, the same time period, you're getting doubled up. I mean, they're doing 25 million, 22 million in ticket revenue. Well, you're sitting here at 11.6. And that just kills you, where even a And that's a 5-win Wisconsin team that fall of 24 that was destroying you in ticket revenue. Now, we also can get into the whole discussion. It's a very nuanced discussion of this is a very competitive sports market. Yes.
And that's what I wanted to bring up. That's what I want to bring up. You can't compare this market to a college town. Mm-hmm. Iowa City, it's just Iowa. Madison, it's just the Badgers. Hey, we all have limited, financial power. Do I want to Gophers? Do I want to spend on Vikings? Do I want to spend on Timberwolves? Do I want to spend it on Wild? Do I want to spend on Gopher women's sports? Mm-hmm. If you're in Iowa, I'm going to Iowa football. Well, here you may have Gophers on Saturday and Vikings on Sunday, and it might be an either or. So right. It's never going to be a apples to apples. I don't think, even though it's the same conference and they're your rivals, totally different situations in terms of just the competition for your dollar. So that's always going to factor in. Shorter than picking up this university and moving them to somewhere else, that's always going to be there. I don't know how you overcome it.
Yeah, I asked about the ticket money, Burnsy. I asked about the ticket money and what they're losing, mostly because of that. Because I do think there's always going to be some barriers. And when people ask for comparisons, Chip, you'll remember this if you go all the way back to the infamous Norwood Teague ticket price increase meetings where they had their consultant in there with them. Their consultant said the comp was like an Arizona State because
Georgia Tech, I think, is the one
where there's a lot of different options. Georgia Tech is another great example. And you look at those two, I know Georgia Tech won a national championship and Arizona State was just in the playoff, but but those were kind of one-offs, right? Like those, because you're in a big metro area, you've got all these distractions, you've got a lot of competition for money, resources are not, for most of us, I would say, are not infinite. They are finite. So that would be, so I guess like the ticket thing, yes, attendance is definitely an issue. However, when you think about even at the high end, what it's going to be like at capacity, for example, you're not talking about doubling your ticket revenue. You're probably talking about what, 25, 30% maybe where it's going up. Like it's not like they're at 50% of what they could be. And you're missing out on this huge pot. Like we already know what it's going to be capped at. Now, what I say is because they're not Iowa and Wisconsin, and you guys know this and bless their hearts at the U, they know this too, because I've probably worn them out with this. Like, I think because of all of that, you have to be super aggressive and super creative and super forgiving sometimes and about ticket prices, about ticket deals. I think they've done some good things to try to be more for pass, all the mini ticket plans that they do. They've, I think done a better job, even just recently in basketball, for example, trying to capitalize on 2 top 10 wins and saying $10 gets you into the next one, next 3 for women's basketball. And by the way, women's basketball tickets start at $18. So that's just a smart marketing thing to go, hey, we had a big win, $10. Most people probably don't even know that women's basketball tickets start at 18. So you're not even losing that much money potentially. So I would love them to be, I think they've done an okay job, to good job at being more creative than they certainly were when I first started to try to fill the building. But I do also think there needs to be, like, because to me, just get people in the building however you can, and even if the tickets are priced to the person that they're sitting next to, because that creates the vibe, that creates the atmosphere, and then people want to women's hoops this year. Like people that have texted me that said we were at the USC game on a Sunday afternoon, we're coming back, it was awesome. Like it's just that's my opinion on it. But attendance, because also attendance, you said, Chip, is down everywhere for everything. That's not the National League, because it's never been easier to just sit and watch a game and not have to deal with everything that goes into going into a game. So I don't know. Well, does that answer your question, Burnsy?
Yeah, to that point, and sports have never been more expensive, and so it's easier to sit at home. And you're right about being creative. What gets people to buy season tickets other than, hey, I'm an alum, I'm loyal? It's experience, right? Like the randoms that come in and just say, I'm going to go to a game. It's the vibe, it's the experience. And how do you create that? By having a full house, and you make people want to do it. And I think in the past, I agree with you that we've seen these kind of promotions where they've reduce ticket sales to try to get people in there. I think that the old philosophy is, man, we don't want to sell a cheap ticket and then have them sit beside a season ticket holder and ask them what they spend on their ticket price. And then the season ticket holder gets mad because they spent, 10 times more. That's archaic. That never happened. How often do you sit down in a game? I don't really go to games as fans too often, but you sit down and say, how much did you pay for your ticket? I mean, that doesn't even come up, right?
No,
it's not even part of
no.
But I think that for years, that was kind of the argument, and it doesn't happen. So I think they realize that, and they realize the most important thing is having people in that building, creating an atmosphere, creating a vibe, and then getting people to want to come back.
Well, and what's funny is your guy, the Timberwolves that you wrote about, because they just raised their ticket prices pretty substantially in a lot of different places. And he, when he was on our radio show, he said something. He basically wants to do away with all the ticket deals. He thinks it's, and his phrase was, and this is where to me, it's going to be interesting with the Wolves, because as I've talked about, one of the reasons why their atmosphere has been crazy the last 5 years, and you guys both know this, they were remarkably inexpensive when you factor in everything else, right? But that allowed a lot of people to go. It allowed a lot of people to have an awesome time, and the place is an absolute madhouse. The president said, if you don't respect your brand, nobody else will, when he talked about ticket prices and not lowering them. And I know that sounds good in an MBA, on an MBA online class. Like, that sounds good, but good luck with that. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you, like, how Minnesotans work. And all of a sudden you're not great, and people getting mad that you're nickel and diming them every time. Like, we've seen it at the University of Minnesota can tell you. The Twins can tell you. Like, you start doing that, it's real easy to go, that one's off the list. I'm going to go do something else. So when he said, kind of like froze up, like, if you don't respect your brand, nobody else will. I'm like, no, everybody respects the brand, but they respect their wallets too.
That's right.
And that's
right.
An arrogant thing to say, like, hey, this is what we are. You pay it or you don't. Like, so I'm fascinated to see if the Wolves got a little too fat cat get slaughtered here in the next couple of years, because people notice, like, if you do start taking advantage of them that way. So anyway, I know I kind of went a lot of different ways there, but so my thing is, I would just get people in the building however you can, and live it and because to me, $5 has always been better than $0 if you were hoping for $10.
That's it.
But they don't ask me.
That's
right. Like,
you
you see a lot of things behind me here. There's no MBA certificate behind me here, right? Like, there's no master's in sports administration. There's no college degree. So why would they take advice from me? Like, but to me, $5 if you were hoping for 10 is better than $0 if you were hoping for 10. But they don't ask me that.
I think Burnsy's wanting to talk about basketball. He needs to get something off his chest. We should probably talk about Jax before he gets this off his chest, right?
Yeah, because Burnsy, I'm just going to tease it today. Burnsy is very bothered by women's basketball, and I can't wait to get into it with them.
I'm going to get. Hang on. I'm going to go make some popcorn as I sit back and watch you two talk about this.
Jack's Cafe. I don't know if they have popcorn, but if they did, it'd be the best damn popcorn in the Twin Cities, and would be for nearly 100 years. They've been our great partners for a couple of years. You want to talk about season ticket holders, people going to the games? Jack's Cafe has allowed dozens of you over the last couple of years to sit in their outstanding seats, to park in their outstanding parking. They've been a tremendous partner. I know Bill has popped into Williams Arena a couple of times here recently to watch Nico and the boys. I hope he comes to watch Dawn and the gals as recently as soon as tomorrow night against Brass. But they're just a wonderful partner, wonderful restaurant, great food, great ambiance, any occasion, happy hour, brunch, date night, company party, just hanging out with your friends. Please, it's all good, Burnsy.
It's all outstanding, to be quite honest with you. I want to put some respect on Jax's name like that. So I swear, every week in between podcasts, we get somebody who takes us up on our advice, heads out to Jax for a nice little date night, whatever it may be, and they always come away blown away, which is exactly what we're going for. So, Chip, whatever the occasion is, we're starting to get into the doldrums of winter, even though it is starting to finally warm up a little bit. Maybe that gets people out of the house and gets them over to some free parking, convenient parking at Jack's Cafe.
I love the free parking. And hey, you mentioned this, Burnsy. We got a tweet, or at least I did, from our good friend Derek. I want to read you what Derek tweeted at us. and it looks like him and his wife, Jen, I think her name is. We made our drive down from Cold Spring for our first visit to Jack's on our 15th year wedding anniversary. Everything was amazing, from the matchbooks to the service and the food. Also, Chip, the creme brulee was awesome. We will definitely be back. Like, we're not just telling you a line, right? No. Take it from Derek and Jen. They went there on the 15th first visit, came from Cold Spring, all the way from Cold Spring, and had just a wonderful anniversary dinner. So congrats to Derek and Jen, and don't take our advice. Listen to what Derek said.
Make your reservations. You see it on the YouTube channel right below Chip there, jaxcafe.com, jaxcafe.com.
Let's go, boys. Have at it. Let's.
Why do you do this to me?
How do you plead?
I see. Before we get into the women's basketball discussion, I want to start with what I believe the data shows is the biggest red flag waving in the Dinkytown wind, which is men's basketball. Because I think the most startling takeaway that I had was I knew ticket sales for men's basketball had been trending down. And so I actually went back in a year after year after year, and I was like, when does this thing stop? And the data shows me that men's basketball ticket sales are down 58% from fiscal year 18, where they cleared $5 million. This last fiscal year, they did 2.1. And let me tell you why I'm even more worried is because I've been tracking the attendance numbers for year one of Nico, and they are trending. They're down 400 fans year over year from what I thought was going to be the most apathetic year of men's basketball I'd ever witnessed, which was Ben Johnson's final year. They're drawing even less, which means with 2 fewer men's basketball games, plus you're trending down in terms of 400 fans year over year. I don't know how else to say it, boys, but whether you want to look at ticket sales, I know what our clicks on Go for Basketball stuff are on Go for Illustrated. I mean, heck, I ain't going to throw a chip under the bus for this, but the Star Tribune doesn't have a full-time men's basketball beat writer anymore, which speaks to what their clicks also probably match up with mine. And that is how I want to phrase it to you guys of they spent a brand new high on men's basketball because of Nico Medved's buyout from Colorado State, because of Ben Johnson's buyout here at the university. They spent $15 million on men's basketball last year. And now what do Iowa and what do Wisconsin spend traditionally? Somewhere around 12 to 13 million. Minnesota had been around 9 million annually. But how do you react to the knowledge of men's basketball ticket sales are going to be down when next year's data gets released? Probably 60%, and it's not even been a decade since that fiscal year high.
Well, I will say I've written about this. I wrote about it extensively when they were making a change. I go back to when Mark Cole made a change with Tracy Claeys. And he looked out at that football stadium and saw those empty seats and said, we need to shake the tree because this is not going to work. Shake the tree. And in the conversations I had last spring, Mark Cole looked at Williams Arena and saw that they averaged 9,000 people. It was like the lowest attendance in decades. And he didn't tell it to me, but there was a sense he needed to shake the tree too. The damage that's been done to Gophers basketball in terms of interest in the past, under Ben Johnson, but even going back before then, as good a hire as I think Nico Medved is, and as good a coach as I think he is, and I think he's a terrific coach, to think that people are just going to automatically come rushing back to your games in year one of a new coach, unless you're bringing Adolph Rupp or, it's not, you don't undo damage like this, right? I mean, it's going to take time. And I do think style of play helps. I think winning helps. I think being competitive helps, all those things, but it doesn't happen overnight. You don't undo damage overnight like this. And again, we go back to competition for dollars, and it's expensive and it's a hassle to get there. And it's, am I going to come down there for a Tuesday night, 8:00 game when I don't You know, I haven't seen the thing turn completely. It's gradual. It's not a light switch. And so it's a problem. And I think that's, you know, I think that's a big part of what Mark Cole, when he looks at these programs, he looks at not just, yes, wins, losses, because there's obviously a correlation to it, but what do they feel about your program? Are they invested? Do they trust it? Do they believe in it? Are they going to spend their money to come watch it? And if they're not, you need to shake the tree. And I think it's going to take Nico time. I mean, the brand is down in terms of like the interest in what people think about Gopher basketball.
And if you think about areas for growth, to bring it back to where can they where maximize revenue or, you know, turn more revenue over than they have historically, it's the basketball programs, right? Because of attendance, because of media rights, because of whatever. And so that's why I agree totally, Chip. And I think the financial, because what did we always say? What did we say about Ben's time? They're not investing in the Rams, get to that spot by letting them kind of wither and die, by not investing in coaches for sure, right? In terms of salary, not investing with the NIL stuff, because why? They had to get football going. Like, we all understand that, but there was some collateral damage there, I think, when you factor in what happened to the basketball programs, specifically in this case to the men's program, because of what it was, $5 million, right? You said, Burnsy, all the way down to, you know, in the twos. So to me, the money we're seeing spent on the basketball programs are I think operating as some kind of AED for both of them. That we've got a 100-year-old building and we need to shock it, and we need to get something back there. We need to get some type of spark. Here's the problem. Unfortunate that Nico Medved gets here and we didn't even get to the first coaches radio show, and he already had 2 season-ending injuries to guys that were supposed to be starters. Because you look at what's happening. With the rivals, like Wisconsin is who Wisconsin is, right? They got, you know, the same guys they've had for the last 30 years, and they're in the NCAA tournament. Iowa got the immediate AED, right? They bring in a coach who'd won. He brings a couple players with him, including an All-American. Boom, shockwave. They're going to go to the tournament. Right. So Minnesota almost had like a false start with this year, in that, I mean, you don't think 1 or 2 players would have helped when you look at how competitive the team's been pretty much every single game in the top 10 wins that they have. But in terms of the budget stuff, Burnsy, to me, it represents, we have to get this thing. We can't be content to just have bad basketball teams in an empty old building. We have to find a way to shock this thing back into existence, where it's not just this black hole of money and time and energy. And so that's why I think you see the numbers are what the numbers are. That's my opinion.
Can I read what I wrote the day that Mark Cole fired Ben Johnson? I just called up my column. This is from March 13th. Here's what I wrote. Kind of those. Cole gambled on someone who had never been a head coach when he hired Johnson. No more gambles. The Big Ten is too cutthroat and the stakes are too high, given the changes happening in college sports and the reliance on football and men's basketball to thrive as the revenue producers that keep an athletic department afloat. The Gophers need to go all in with men's basketball. No more dipping toes in to check the temperature of the water. University leadership needs to commit the resources to hire a proven coach and give him the kind of financial support that is competitive with peers. Cole has prioritized PJ Fleck's football program, and rightfully so, because nothing is more important than football to a department's overall success. Men's basketball needs to have that same sense of urgency too. You have to spend money on football and men's basketball, because that's the biggest revenue drivers to keep your department afloat. Spend money to make money, and you have to give Nico the kind of investment, not the same level probably as football, obviously, because it's it's just a bigger program and all that, but the urgency to get those 2 programs at a pretty significant level in terms of winning and being competitive, there's nothing more important than Mark Cole can do. And if it takes money and you like you said, you invest the money and maybe you're not getting the results on the court this year, if you're watching men's basketball, you can see where this is going. I think this team is really well coached. I think Nico knows what the hell he's doing. You watch the way they play. I just think they're in good hands, and it's going to take a little time, but you have to give the resources to get there. That's my 2 cents.
The men's basketball discussion is just so nuanced because why is ticket sales even down so much? Well, the team stinks, and this team has stunk. They're like 50 games below 500 in conference play since the last time they made the tournament. The Wolves rise in that same time. I think it's definitely a part of that discussion. I think the Williams Arena discussion, where it's not a great place to watch a game. You also got, I'd say, the rise of high school sports in that same time, where you look across, again, I can even see how the Star Tribune is pivoting their coverage, and I'm seeing the photos that you guys tweet out from every high school basketball game. Them places is full. So if it's a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. and the Gophers are taking on Rutgers versus it's Minnetonka versus Edina, I can tell you who's winning in terms of where their butts are going to be. It's not Williams Arena. It's just, I wish we could point to that this move would have inspired the casual fan. Because if you're listening to this, you are probably very likely not the problem here. The problem is grabbing the attention of the casual fan in this sports market is just gone. And when you're down in year one of Nico, even worse than what you were drawing last year, I just don't know that even if they do finally get back into the tournament discussion next year, if they get healthy and XYZ thing, it's just when you look at the scope of the athletic budget, because men's basketball last fiscal year, only made, I think it was $300,000 in profit because you spent so much on the buyouts. Now, again, I don't know what it's going to settle at for this upcoming year. I wish I had the access to that. I've been asking around, haven't been able to get a number I feel comfortable sharing. But if you're going to spend at a level like Chip wants, even to the extent that Iowa and Wisconsin spend on men's basketball, which, as I said earlier, 12, 13 million. I mean, you still did 15, like 9 in terms of revenue. I think most of that coming from the media rights money. It's not just one thing of why people don't care about Minnesota men's basketball anymore. Like I said, you could name off 7 different items that all contribute to it, but it's just staggering to me to see how much they've lost in terms of casual fan interest because of the losing, because of the Wolves rise, because of high school basketball, Williams Arena, XYZ thing. And that's just a killer for me. Again, I even think about, as I said earlier too, the student section discussion. You haven't just lost the people, the casual fan there. I can see what the students aren't even showing up for a Super Bowl Sunday at, say, 1 p.m. I mean, they're just not. They're apathetic still. And apathy is the thing that kills you. And so I hope this thing turns around. But Guards, you go ahead.
The younger fans that we've talked about for the last 4 or 5 years at Huntington Bank Stadium, you hit on a spot where they are, and we've talked about it on this podcast. They're at Target Center. The younger fans are at Target Center right now, and that makes sense. And you can even go back in history if you want to go back to when Gopher hockey took a real big downturn in terms of attendance. It was the ticket thing, number one, but the Wild showed back up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go all the way back to the 1960s when Gopher football was the biggest thing in town. The Vikings showed up. Like, professional sports in this town have a huge impact. Like, you go anywhere, and you, Chip, I know you've sat in my upper deck seats. You're probably the oldest one up there by like 3 years. The people that are up there at the Wolves game, they're up there having the time of their life, drinking 16-ounce beers and cheering for Anthony Edwards and holding their Nas Reed towel. Like, the younger people are at Target Center right now. It's for cheap, and the team has been good. Now, we've seen you can, and the fact that I'm 43 years old, and let's see, can you see it? Yeah, there it is. It's right up there. The 1997 Final Four ball. Like, I was a 15-year-old when that happened, right? 14 or 15 years old. So there's so many people younger, Burnsy, your age, that have no good memory. Like, I can't wait for Williams Arena to be back. Every time I go there, I'm like, is it back? Does it feel back? Is it back like it was? Is it close to back? Is it 75% back? A guy your age, Burnsy, and younger, they don't even know what Williams Arena was. It just looks like a 100-year-old building that you can't get good food, and it's hard to walk around, and the bathroom lines are long. So, and by the way, all those issues exist at Target Center too, but they're about to build a new arena. Team's really good. So I don't know. I don't even know what my point was with this thing, but to the attendance thing,
you got to make it cool again.
Feel young. Yeah, exactly. And it's hard to do that unless. So I guess my point is there's a lot of pressure on Nico because he's not only got to revive the basketball program, he's got to save the barn. He's got to bring younger people in, like, because the barn isn't cool. Everyone says when the barn is great, it's great, but it's got to be great first to be great. And like, it's hard. It's not just going to be great on its own, like some of these other buildings are. So it's a big, big challenge. Yeah, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, you're not going to walk in there and say, "Wow, look at this place. This is unbelievable." No.
Right.
If it's
and other teams love it. Like Eric Musselman was on the Fan when they came in here, and he hadn't been here in a long time, and he was great talking about his dad. And he said, "My guys love it. They think it's the coolest place we play." It's like, yeah, for one night, but if you had to live here every day, you might not want to. And so, I've actually come back around on it that I don't, but I don't know.
If you're going to keep it, you obviously have to, modernize some things, i.e. bathrooms, concessions, to the extent that you can. But, I think most sports markets, and we're not different, are bandwagonish. When a team gets hot, we all jump on it, right? We've had examples over the years where if you're just a casual fan and you see people talking about a team or, a team that's going to the playoffs, we kind of rally around it. That's what Nico needs. Right. You need a team that gets into the tournament. Get in that tournament. The place goes crazy. It's a buzz. Hey, I want to see what that's all about. That's how it happens. Right.
Right.
It doesn't help when you lose, when you're playing 7 players and really 5 players, and you're feel like you're hanging by a thread. Not the most ideal situation to start your tenure.
Right.
But that's how it starts. Right. You have some success. You get to a tournament. People are buzzing about it. They want to come, they check out, hey, this is pretty cool. They keep coming. You stack seasons where you're competitive and you go to the tournament. That's how you get them back. Now it's easier for me to say that because that hasn't been Minnesota basketball for the last decades, since I've been to town. Since
you've been to town, it's been hard. Yeah, it's been hard.
Yeah.
I believe fully in Nico too. Like if he can't do it, like it can't be done in its current state. That's how I believe. And when I mean current state, I mean, then you need to blow up everything. And that includes Williams Arena. Like if Nico Medved can't do it to get him, because that's how highly I think of him. Like, I just think he's a total
he's a great
his,
coach. I really do.
His track record proves it. Like the guy, and honestly, as I've always said, it's like, and I don't think enough people understand this. If he wasn't from Roseville, he would not be coaching here. Not because the U wouldn't have hired him, wouldn't have given a crap. Like he would have been like every other good coach from a mid-major that won a bunch and got to the tournament. He would have said, why am I going there? Why would I go there? That's where coaches go to die. Like Tubby Smith got fired there. Richard Pitino won the league 2 times after he left. It was like, why would I go there? But Nico, it matters to him. So I think we're lucky. And you wrote the story. We're lucky there came over on the ship and that family from Bowabic sponsored him, so that Nico Medved could be here. Because if he can't do it, it can't be done in his current form. If Nico Medved do it, that's how strongly I feel about him, but also the challenges of the place.
I think the
Burns,
last thing I want to add to this before we switch to women's basketball too is we also haven't talked about the roster turnover issue in men's basketball. And that is not a Minnesota specific thing. That is every single college team, where I think that absolutely in this specific market too plays a big factor, where every single year, 50% of the roster is gone. And the lack, again, I know that the bit of hashtag one of us, but it's just even trying to get people attached to guys when you're losing 60% of your roster every year is just, and especially here recently with guys even like Pharrell Payne, where, okay, local guy stays home, then local guy goes and takes giant checks. Like that is also, I think, a part of why you've seen what you've seen is the mercenary aspect that college basketball just in general has now turned into. I think it's definitely turned off some people in this market.
Yeah. I mean, that's a sport conversation. Cause I mean, I don't want to sound like the old guy, get off my lawn, but growing up and you hated either love or hated the Duke, the UNLV, the Georgetown, because those teams stayed together for 3 years and we got to know them, and Christian Laettner and Hurley and the world's different, right? The world's different, and people You know, everything's changed. But I do think college basketball, more than even college football, even though there have 5,000 players in the portal or whatever the number was, you're right, the kind of team to team AAU culture that's come into college basketball with the portal and guys just, there's no real allegiances and they jump from team to team. That's hurt because you can't identify with the players. I mean, I feel like every year I'm trying to learn a new roster because like I don't even know who these players are. But that's not just a Minnesota problem.
People were confused this weekend because we're in February and people were confused because they had the names of the kids they were supporting from the Masonic Children's Hospital on their back of their jerseys. People were having trouble. And we're in mid-February. And that includes Mike Grimm, the play-by-play guy, because he was reading the names on the back of the jersey. He had some fun with that. He's like, I saw Carolina Tyson Johnson like 7 times, and I'm making it up. But, like, people were rattled by that. It's like, wait, who's that again? I thought his name's Smith. I thought his name was, Packer Johnson. What happened here? No, you're right. And the other thing that works against men's basketball is guys will go to the league or they'll play in Europe. And NIL, I think, has kept more guys in college. They've kept more guys in college, but maybe not as many. Whereas, and let's transition to the women's game, where I think the women's game nationally, and I watched this. I watched this happen in real time. I watched Caitlin Clark go from a cute story in Iowa to, guess what? She stayed in Iowa her whole career, played 4 years. And Kate Martin, and Gabby Marshall, if you want to name, all these players that played. I watched Caitlin Clark sign a few autographs in the corner of Carver Hawkeye Arena, to a lot more autographs in the corner of Carver Hawkeye Arena, to every autograph in every arena that she went to for and in season. And it's not but familiarity, right? People watched. They grew with the team. And Iowa's not the only place that has grown. I mean, I go to all the buildings. Michigan State's a great environment now. Ohio State's a great environment now. Indiana, in the same time, became a great environment. Michigan, but all these players, like, yes, there's transfers, players leave. There's a little bit, it's transient, and the teams are worried about retention of their players. But that familiarity has allowed that women's side to grow to where they're a factor now in media rights, like volleyball is also going to be, and like softball is also going to be, not to the extent of football or men's basketball, of course, but it's not just a throw-in anymore where you can do these games and, oh, by the way, we're going to give you 10 women's basketball games a year. So that's what women's basketball, I think, has going for it. But Burnsy, you have some other things you want to talk about.
Yeah, for the record here, before we get into it, I don't hate women's basketball. I was a practice player for that team, and my ribs still remember Amanda Zowe's elbows. Okay, I am well aware. Okay, but it's
Amanda Zowe be rough on Burnsy.
Yeah, I don't want Don Plitzowite to come for me. I'm just telling you, when you look at the data, I mean, women's basketball lost $4.95 million with a new record high spend of 6.59, where ticket sales, I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about ticket sales. The second biggest drop in ticket sales last year behind football was women's basketball. And that was a team that, as Guardsy can attest, won a WBIT title at the end of the season there. Like, they were a winning type of team. Now, I will be the first to tell you, I'm well aware not having a Caitlin Clark game hurts you. It hurts you immensely because that sold out Williams Arena. But the interesting part about this discussion to me comes back to even this year's attendance, where I'll be the first to tell you, like, they're down so far this year, a team that should be ranked and should make the tournament for the first time in, I think, 8 years. They're down 300 fans year over year. So the question becomes, for the amount of spend that Mark Coyle continues to put into women's basketball, and I think it's great they're going to make the tournament, and Don Plitzowite has finally been able to get them over that hump. But the interesting part of the discussion is, to me, over the last 4 years now, fiscal years, women's basketball is losing $4.5 million on average. Now, I also know the pushback I've gotten is, well, Ryan, Iowa lost $3.5 million or $3.7 million on women's basketball. I mean, women's basketball is gigantic at Iowa. I mean, I have the data in front of me. They do like $4 million in revenue, whereas women's basketball here at the University of Minnesota does about 1.6-ish. Like, they spend a lot of money on women's basketball here. And that's my question to people has been, I don't think return on investment always has to be dollars and cents. I don't. But what does ROI look like for Mark Coyle with the spend on some of these programs is the question I guess I have for you guys, where go ahead, Chip.
Well, no, I wasn't going to interrupt you, but I just think women's basketball is going to lose money.
I know.
Probably, I'm guessing Carolina maybe breaks even. I don't know. LSU, there's probably 5 programs that maybe they make money, break even. I don't know. So you're going to lose money. The return on investment is visibility. And when the women's basketball team goes to the tournament, you're going to get eyeballs on your athletic department. You're going to get on that program. Maybe that I can't explain the drop in ticket sales this year because I don't have a good theory, to be honest with you. I don't know why that would be. I think it's a pretty, Gaards, you can speak more eloquent than me, but I think it's a pretty exciting team. Now, maybe you see the jump next year if they go to the tournament, have some success. That's where maybe the bounce comes. But I think it's visibility, Burnsy. What's your return on investment? It's not we're going to make money on it. It's in terms of, hey, this program's making money, but this pretty visible program is bringing eyeballs to our product, bringing eyeballs to people to our campus, bringing eyeballs to Gopher sports. I think that's your return on investment.
Okay.
I would also say it's the finances of women's sports are changing in terms of media rights coming up here. Like, they've changed. And like, if you look at like Big Ten Network ratings, for example, I've always been told, and I don't know if you guys have told this, volleyball is their second highest rated sport after football for games that are on the Big Ten Network. And so I think, and certainly the investment right now is kind of what I said about Nico. Like, they need to jumpstart it. They needed to get to a certain place, and it's been hard to do it. I think they've been to 10 NCAA tournaments all time, just like the men. You're not in great company when you start actually stacking that up and you go, okay, who are our peers? Because you think your peers are, Iowa, Wisconsin, or whoever. And I think Wisconsin's actually one of the teams that's been to fewer NCAA tournaments than the Gophers have on the women's side. I think with basketball right now, it's literally startup costs. Like, you have to try something different than you've done it before. Because those numbers, they definitely jump off the page. I do think if you're looking at what sports have potential to actually grow, they're all on the women's side. And when I say grow, I mean actually get more media rights money. Because for a while, like, they've got their own tournament deal now. And I don't know all this off the top of my head. I should have prepared more, but I've been on the road for 3 weeks. I didn't. But like, softball's another one that has huge numbers, right? That is going to be able to capitalize. Volleyball obviously has huge numbers. They're putting volleyball on Fox on Sundays. When they don't have an NFL game. It's not just because they're looking to fill time. It's because people are going to watch. Not as much as an NFL game, of course, but they're going to watch. So I don't know. That's kind of where I am on it. And honestly, here in Minnesota, we've seen, like, we were season ticket holders. I mean, my parents are now. We were season ticket holders for the Lindsey Whalen era and for many years after that. Like, they moved to Williams Arena because a pipe broke at the Pavilion. But they could have done that regardless once Whalen got here. And then 3 or 4 years after that with Pam Borton, they were still pretty good, going to Sweet 16s and all of that. So and just again, for me, I've seen almost every arena grow in terms of how many people are coming to the game, the atmospheres. And I think because of all the things we talked about with familiarity, they're not as affected by the portal, the TVs, people are getting to know these players more and more and more. Like, I see that continuing to go up in the short term, much more likely than I think it's going to go down. Yeah.
And much like we sang Nico's praises, I think Dawn's the right hire. I mean, she's a really good coach, and just, you feel like they're in good hands, right? You feel like that program is in really good hands with her. And Gaards, you can speak to it more than me, but you're right about the growth of women's sports, not just here, and I think this market has always supported women's sports probably a lot more than other sports. When you look at the Lynx, you look at, when Whalen then went to Final Four, that really created excitement. High school sports, we obviously see it, but you're right in terms of viewership, but I also think sponsorship and companies pour, advertising dollars into women's sports now where it always went to the men's sports. Like that's where the return on investment could come. Yes, the TV money and the growth there. I think the corporate dollars in terms of sponsorships, that's where it can grow. I do think, as Dawn builds this program and they become, because I think she can make this a program that gets to the tournament regularly. I think she's that good a coach. And there's, as we know, girls basketball in high school level is really good in Minnesota. And I think she can, really build this roster and they can be a team that you can say, you know what, this is a tournament team this year and next year. And I think that's where your attendance is, I think you'll see a bump next year. Again, I can't explain this year at all, but maybe someone smarter than me can explain that one.
Well, that's where I'm going to come across like a dick here again, and I don't want anything to do with it. But it's like I'm tired of the hypothetical discussion around the growth opportunity. Look, I agree, like holistically, but I'm telling you, I'm staring at the data year over year for women's basketball. They're down hundreds of thousands in revenue. I'm staring at the year over year data for Gopher volleyball. They're down hundreds of thousands year over year in revenue. And then I look at what the attendance has been for what is going to be the best women's basketball team in the last 8 years. They're going to make the tournament. And I'm telling you that attendance is down again, 300 fans.
Yeah, hold on though.
It's the casual fan that is just not investing.
Well,
like they say they want to, but then I'm looking at the dollars and cents of it, and it's just they're not coming to support them in person.
If you take out the Caitlin Clark game, because that was last year, right? Or no, 2 years ago.
No,
when
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
But it would have been in this data, though. It would have been in this data. It was 2 years ago, but it hadn't been in this data. So is that if you take that game out, are they still down? I don't know. I'm just
attendance this year is down, and that is not including the Caitlin Clark game. That because
okay,
like Iowa played here last year in 24. Caitlin Clark was not a part of that team. They still drew 6,700 fans for that game. But again, with 3 games left, and there should be some pretty good games at the Barn Guardsy. Like,
yeah, they're going to be great games. But hold on, let me stop you here because I haven't gone through this. Because a lot of the positive revenue that we're talking about for football and for who gets media rights money,
90%
who actually
of
gets
it goes to football,
which it should, right? Because
that's the only other slice of the pie that the University of Minnesota reported went to men's basketball, not to women's basketball, not to volleyball, not to hockey. They only put it in the line item of men's basketball.
So that is kind of my point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is every school, because and again, I gotta think about this more. Like, if they put $2 million of women of media rights money into women's basketball, we'd still be talking about a loss, but we you know what I mean? Like,
I get it. And again, that's why I don't want to come across as the guy who's trying to say cut all sports. That is not what I'm saying. It's just more so the fans that say that they support these teams, where it helps the university the most is in person. It is buying licensed apparel. It is different things like that.
But we just talked about football attendance being down. We literally just talked about football attendance being down. Like, attendance is down. Attendance just straight up for everywhere is down. Like,
well, that's where
good, bad, or indifferent they are.
I'll give you an example. So say, let's compare it to, I talk about men's basketball. Men's basketball attendance being down 58%. Okay, well, what was Wisconsin's in that same time period? It was down to 1%. I mean, they've largely stayed flat, which in this era is very difficult to do. Now, Wisconsin, an exponentially more consistent and higher floor and higher ceiling team. But that's when you look at the athletic budget
in a college market,
Wisconsin and Iowa, 8 figures above you in revenue every year. Every dollar counts is the only thing I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Burnsy, I would think in those markets, and I'm just guessing, even if there's you have a down year, the next year you're probably going to be, or if you have two down years, you're probably going to say, well, still the Badgers is still the only show in town. Whereas here you say, you know what? Maybe I'll go to the Timberwolves, or maybe I'll go to the Wild, or maybe I'll find something else to do with my money. I just think when you slip in your program here with the competition for your attention and your money, I think it's probably easier to lose traction here with fan bases or with the casual fans than it would be in a college market where it's like that's still the only show in town.
Yeah.
Maybe that's playing into this,
Yeah, I mean, my overarching point with this whole bit is, as we talked about like 45 minutes ago, now Mark Hoyle and his entire athletic administration have to find $20.5 million to pay athletes, because this upcoming fiscal year will be the first time they have to do that, which is why they're projecting a $9 million deficit. And so when I then run through the numbers of, is that right? Football attendance in this past fall was down slightly. Women's basketball, men's basketball, they were down. Like, everybody's belt is getting tighter and tighter. And so if you're not going to be making up revenue in ticket sales, yeah, you're going to get a bump in media rights, which is, I think, what they're projecting in there.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to find some very creative ways to continue to tighten the belt on all of these programs, which is why I'm going to be very curious to see what the spend ends up looking like, because again, this current fiscal year it ends on June 30th. So there's still time to go of how they can maneuver things in this budget. But that's the thing, is like, if they were projecting over the summer a $9 million deficit, and then you look at how ticket sales, because again, I continue to reference that because outside of media rights money, that is the number one revenue generator at the University of Minnesota.
Yeah.
So those all continue to trend down slightly. Where do you make up the end of the budget here is my point.
Yeah. Burnsy, do you know the bump in media rights from year to year going into it's like 10 million? Is it that much?
I think it's going to go up another 10 to 12 million, which is how you have the university stomaching some of this with, again, why is it only a 9 million when you're paying an extra 20 and a half?
Yeah.
Because that's where that media rights money is going.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is
what happens when that bubble bursts there? That's the thing I always wonder. And maybe it won't. I've been saying that for 8 years now, and it hasn't. But I guess with streaming, it's always going to be.
They'll find another streamer to give them, $5 million for a special
or private
game.
equity.
What the NFL did, yeah, or private equity, yeah, which was a big deal. Well, what will be interesting next year, I go school to school, and Minnesota's rev sharing with football, the basketballs, volleyball, and men's hockey, right? Those are the 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oregon's rev sharing with 3.
Yeah.
Football and the basketballs. Like, they don't have hockey. They're not given to volleyball. Like, schools are making choices,
Yeah.
And so whatever you think of the choices, whatever you like of the choices, schools are making choices. So like some of these halves are going to separate even more so with football. I don't know. And you kind of you look for your opportunities to maybe invest in a program that others aren't so that you can go this way. It's going to be wild. It's going to be fascinating. And I know Burnsy can't wait to go through next year's fiscal report I think part of it that hurts you right now.
The texts and the emails and the phone calls that I'm going to get after.
It's good reporting.
Well,
man, that's good reporting.
I know.
And I'm going to get them because of you. I already know. I already know from at least 2 people that are going to text me after this episode with thoughts and feelings about you. And I'm going to have to say he's actually a really nice guy. He's actually a good guy, and he just wants what's best for everybody.
I don't hate whatever program you love the most, and I'm not advocating for all of this money to just go to football. It's just like someone has to make money at this institution if you want to continue to fund all of these different things, because the university is not going to go ask for more money because they don't want to get the PR storm that would be from the 2 papers. Again, you have to find it somewhere is all I'm trying to say.
And I know we've gone long here and I don't want to raise this up, but how many schools have allowed their athletic departments to go in debt? Whereas this one's always been balance the budget.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you reminded me of that, because with the story that Burnsy just, wrote last week, I mean, you look at, again, Rutgers was like 70 million again. And it's just like, I mean, it's like $500 million over the last 7-8 years. And it's like,
UCLA.
it's easy. UCLA is another great example. Like Illinois got debt. Now a lot of these places also have more donors than Minnesota. So there's some that are just writing checks the other way. And we talked about that. You're right. I mean, this is who Minnesota is. Like everybody I think needs to understand that. And like, it's a lot harder when you're fiscally responsible. I mean, you just think about Rutgers, like they could just take Kirk Shiraka just because they didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the money for it. And Burns, to bring it all the way back to the start of the discussion, Minnesota's like, well, we're not going to go 1-5 because we don't have that, or we don't want to have to try to find that. And Rutgers is like, you want $1.5 million, 3 years? Hell yeah. Yeah. We're $400 million in debt. What's another 1.5? Like that's real. That's real. And by the way, I know they lost to him 2 years ago, but they beat him this year. Like, again, it doesn't guarantee you anything. Mm-hmm. And I understand why Rutgers does it, because that's another kind of probably Minnesota adjacent school where you're kind of in a bigger market, at least market adjacent. There's competition for everything. No one's really thinking about Rutgers. They're trying to shock the system, and it's not working. Like, it doesn't guarantee anything, but the other way guarantees you're stuck. So if you're going to play, you got to play. Mm-hmm. And now they're $500 million in debt, I guess. Yeah. Apologies to the Bison fans who I know waited 90 minutes to hear about their move to the Mountain West. Well, now we have a reason to do a show next week, because I want to talk about the Bison jumping up. Speaking of money, they got to pay to get into the Mountain West, which I think is a great move for them. I think it's long overdue. I love that. Burnsy probably doesn't, because now he's going to really have to cover the Dakotas more, or have to get a Bison Illustrated recruiting guy, 247. And the Nebraska AD stuff is off the charts funny, and so we got to do a show next week. But any other final thoughts? And again, Ryan Burns MN is the Twitter handle. At Ryan Burns MN. You can go to gopherillustrated.com.
Burns, it was good reporting. I appreciate you doing that. I mean, it was
yes,
good
thank you for going through all of it, because it was good. It's a lot to go through, and it's very confusing.
And I think I'll say this,
to be honest with you. Like, we didn't even touch the hockey programs and things like that. It's just, I think what I learned, even just from diving into it, or even talking with you guys and talking with different people, getting different perspectives, is I don't want to be Mark Coyle because I don't know how you find a way to meet the budget when the attendance is going to be down, when every single coach across the board wants more money because it's the most expensive era of college sports. You have $160-something million budget. But the reality of the situation I came away with is the casual fan, and not the people listening to this, because if you're listening to this, you care. But it's the casual fan in this market has never, at least in modern, to me, been more apathetic towards many of the Gopher sports, which is very unfortunate as someone who, again, graduated from the university, covers the program. But that is the thing that Mark Coyle and his staff have to figure out, is how do you regain the attention of the casual sports fan in what might be the most competitive sports market in the Big Ten.
Well, and my final thought is
walk it off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say that. Like that, I've covered this athletic department for a quarter century, and I've always said that it's such a complicated, when you talk about money, finances, attendance, all those things, it's a complicated conversation that's not black and white because of the market you're in and all the different factors. It's not just one thing. It's not just two things. There's probably 25 things that you have to understand and try to navigate and manage and overcome. And it's just a different situation than a lot of your peers. And it's complicated. It's nuanced, and people don't want to hear that, but it's true. And so that's why it's why we've gone an hour and a half, because we could talk another 3 hours probably on this, because it's a complicated situation.
Well, I guess if you're looking to blame somebody, blame Amanda Zowie B for being so rough on Burnsy all those years ago. Jack's Cafe is our great partner, jaxcafe.com to make your reservations. Before or after a game, there's still home games for all the men's and women's hockey, men's and women's basketball, and obviously football as well. And even if you're not related to Gopher sports game, go to Jack's Cafe for a date night, for a brunch, for whatever the occasion. They've got something for everybody. We will talk to you next week on the Pair and a Spare podcast.